Welcome to episode 19 of our ComfyUI tutorial series. Today, I want to show you how I use Inpainting to modify photos or illustrations, add or change elements, and fix mistakes so you can use your creativity to take your images to the next level. It was a highly requested episode, and now it's finally here. First, we need a custom node, so go to the Manager and then to Custom Nodes Manager. If you search for Inpaint, you'll see quite a few nodes, but if you search for Inpaint-Crop, you'll find this node along with its author. Click Install and wait for it to finish installing, then click the Restart button. Next, let's go to the workflow and open a basic SDXL workflow like the one from episode 3. It will be easier to understand when we start with something we already know. Now we need an Inpainting model, and this one is an SDXL base version that helps achieve better inpainting. But if you have another favorite Inpainting model, feel free to use that. Download this model and place it in the checkpoints folder, just like any other SDXL model. You can see I've already downloaded the model. Now, if your ComfyUI is open, click the refresh button. After that, in the load checkpoints section, you'll find the downloaded model and you can select it. We now need a node just before the K-sampler, so I'll make some space there. Then double click on the canvas, search for Inpaint, and add the Inpaint model conditioning node. As you can see on the left, we have two inputs for positive and negative prompts, which we can connect to our positive and negative prompts. On the right, we also have outputs, so we can connect it to the K-sampler. Now, our positive and negative prompts will go through this conditioning node. We'll also connect the latent here, and since we are using Inpainting, we need to add our own image, so we don't need the empty latent image node. Next, we connect it to the VAE. For this model, it's included in the checkpoint, so we'll connect it there. Now we need to add our image, so we'll use the load image node. I will upload this portrait of a woman. Then we need the Inpainting nodes that we installed earlier. So search for Inpaint and add the Inpaint-Crop node as well as the Inpaint-Stitch node. We need both of these nodes. One will crop our selection and the other will combine it back into the original image. As you can see, it's easy to connect the image to image and mask to mask. The cropped image will go to the Inpainting conditioning node. Both have a blue color. Then the mask will also go there to the mask input, and both are green. In a minute, we will make a selection here. That selection will be cropped and go through this conditioning, similar to the image-to-image workflow, but just for the portion we want to inpaint. However, the image is not stitched back to the original image, which is why we use this node. After the decode, it goes back to stitching, and then we save the image. So we need to connect that stitch node so it knows to combine our cropped and original images into one final image. That is basically the workflow. It isn't that complex. Right now, we need to adjust one setting here. If you're using an SD 1.5 model, you can leave the settings as they are, but in our case, we're using the SDXL model, so we need larger images. Instead of using the range size, we will use a forced size to set it to 1024 pixels since SDXL models. Okay, it's time to run some tests. Make sure you have the Inpainting model selected, and now we can go to our uploaded image. Right-click on the image and select Open in Mask Editor. In this editor, we can paint our selection, the area we want to change or inpaint. You see this circle? That indicates the size of the brush. You can use the mouse wheel to make it larger, or you can use the square bracket keys like in Photoshop. You can also move it around with the mouse from here. Press the left mouse button to start drawing, and if you want to delete, use the right mouse button. You can adjust the opacity to see better what area you are painting. For the brush size, or pointer size as it's called here, it can be either circular or square. For color, you have black, white, or negative. In this case, white is more visible. You can also use the clear button to erase everything. Let's say I want to change the color of the hair. We can select the hair, and I usually go a little outside the area I want. So it doesn't have to be precise. Just make the selection a bit larger than the area you want to change. When you're ready, click Save to Node. Now that selection is saved to that node, but you can edit it anytime. Now that we have our selection, you can add your prompt to describe what you want to see there. For example, I want red hair. When I run the workflow, that selection will be cropped and processed like an image-to-image workflow, then stitched back to the original image that this is the result. Now, the hairstyle is very different because we had the Denoise set to a value of 1. You usually do that when you want a completely new image there, but I want something similar, so let's reduce the Denoise value to 0.5. Now, when I test it, you can see it started to add a little red, but didn't have enough power to change it, so I'll give it more freedom by increasing the Denoise value. Now it can be more creative and add that red color. If I increase it even more, it has more freedom, but slowly it starts to differ more from the original. You can also change the style of the hair. For example, I can make it curly. Inpainting isn't always perfect, and you need to experiment with prompts and Denoise values until you find a balance. Let's see if we can make it blonde hair. The AI is using the original black hair and trying to adjust it based on the prompt, but it often needs more freedom, so increasing the Denoise value helps much better now. Some things to consider when editing images are the reflections. In this case, the hair reflection is black, so we can include that area in the selection if we want to change it. Right-click on the image, open the mask editor, and let's paint that area of the reflection. Then I'll run the workflow again to see what effect it has on the image. Now, you can see the reflection matches the woman's hair, making it look more realistic. Let's say I like how it looks and want to make more changes to other areas, like changing the shirt. You can right-click on the image and select Copy Image. Then click on the image from the Load Image node and press Ctrl+V to paste it. Now this is the starting image, and we can open the mask editor to select that red shirt, then save it to the node. We'll change the prompt to white t-shirt. When we run it, we get a shirt, but it's still red. You can quite easily get different shapes, but the color of the original image still has a strong influence. Let me take a preview to see how the cropped image looks so you can understand it better. When I run the workflow, we get this cropped image, which is a square based on the size of our painted selection, and pull up the settings from this node. Let's increase the Denoise to 0.9 and try again. So as you can see, it's still strong. One easy solution would be to use Photoshop to quickly color it white and then try again to inpaint. Alternatively, you can increase the Denoise even more, but that sometimes works and sometimes doesn't inpaint well because it's so different. However, you can always apply inpainting again on the resulting image to fine-tune it further. Now, let's reduce the Denoise value, and this time, let's see if we can add some sunglasses. I'll make a selection around the eyes and change the prompt. You can see how the cropped area is smaller because our selection is smaller. You have different methods to increase the context area, allowing it to look around more elements for more accurate results. For instance, if I set 100 pixels, the context area will expand by that amount. If I set 200 pixels, it will gather even more information. You can also invert the mask, keeping our selection while changing everything else, which can be useful in some cases. Let's turn the invert mask off. You can also blur the mask to make the selection more blurry. As you can see, it's blurrier now, but in some cases, this helps with blending. I'll reset the values to default. You can use the expand factor to increase the context area, but I'll leave that at default too. You can see on the glasses that one part is still blurry. It tried to create the glasses, but didn't have enough space in the selection. I can go back to the mask editor and expand the selection to give it more room, just a little bit under her right eye. Now, when I try it, you can see it worked great and there are no errors with the glasses. Let me load this cute monster. I'll open the mask editor and make this selection here so I can place a skull on the ground. Always make the selection a little bigger. For the prompt, I'll use cartoon skull on the ground. You can see the area that is cropped and you can expand it if you need more information. But in this case, it should be fine. And I got this skull. I can try different seeds to see what I can get. I can also adjust the denoise or the prompt, like saying the skull is made of stone and maybe covered in moss. So you can get creative here. The first version looks like this. Let's try another seed. This one looks interesting. I can copy the image and paste it. So we'll use this image now. Let's say I want to add a hat here. I'm adjusting the prompt. Now, since the monster has that hair, it tries to shape the hat around the existing hair. I can increase the denoise to 1 to get a new image, but that might be too much. If it's too low, I won't get what I want. Let me clear the masked area. One thing you can try is to manually add some information, like using Photoshop to paint something there. I'll do a selection bigger than the hat. Now, the hat color was a little too intense, but the shape is there. I can try different denoise values and different seeds until I get something decent. You can always put the results back into the load image node and do in-painting again, hoping for a better version. Or you can play around more with a photo editor to adjust the position you want and try in-painting again. If the color had been a dark gray, I think it would have blended even better, but you get the idea. You can make it work, but it requires some extra effort. Let me open this temple digital painting. You can see that the top part has some small mistakes, so I'm selecting that area. Then I'll change the prompt to fantasy temple tower. I'll use less denoise since I want to keep it similar just to get some variation. I'll try different seeds until something works. Next, I can copy and paste the image again and make more changes. Let's say I want a flying bird in this area. For the prompt, I'll use a crow flying. As you can see, with each different seed I try, I get a different bird. So you can get really creative with this tool. Let me copy and paste the result back to the load image node. This time, I want to show you how outpainting works. I'm making room for a new node, so I'll search for outpainting. Now we need to insert this node into the workflow connecting image to image and mask to mask. I'll do the same on the other side. Now the workflow is converted into an outpainting one. We can also add a preview to see what the nodes do to our image. By default, it doesn't do anything, so let's change some settings. See those expand options? Up, down, left, right? We need to change the direction for our expansion. If I go up by 20%, I add the value 1.2 for that direction. For the prompt, I'll use digital painting of a sky. When we run it, we can see that the image is expanded by flipping the original image and making it taller by 20% on top. Now, the result isn't exactly how I want it, so I'll increase the denoise value, and now it looks better. If I try a different version, you can see a subtle line where the top part begins. You can sometimes blend that better by increasing the mask blur. Now, it looks a little better. Of course, we can copy the image again and expand in another direction if we want. I'll reset the up value and expand the down value by 50%. For the prompt, maybe something like Hell Cave, you can see how the node expanded the image. Let's check the result. It didn't have enough power to get that Hell Cave, so I'll increase the denoise. When I see it's working, I'll try different seeds until one works better for what I have in mind. You can also open another workflow, like the in-painting workflow. I'll add all these on Discord so you can download them for free. Now I can copy the image from the outpainting workflow and paste it into the in-painting workflow. I might select some parts on the rocks, and for the prompt, I'll add hellfire. Look at that. We're starting to see fire. Without this inpainting, it would have been very hard to prompt all these details in an image. But now, with inpainting, you can make it as complex as you want. I also created a Flux Inpainting and Outpainting workflow, but since Flux doesn't have an inpainting model yet, I found some control net models that slow down the generation. However, it still works okay. Sometimes it produces great results and other times it fails. The workflow is similar between the Flux guidance and K-Sampler. I added the InPaint model conditioning, and the rest is similar to the SDXL workflow. Let me load that portrait of a woman again. I'll try to add some glasses in the prompt, and as you can see, already at 0.9, this seed failed. So I'm reducing the denoise value to 0.8, and in this case, it's better. My selection is too small for those big glasses, so I'm increasing the selection again, and now the blend is perfect. It's too bad that the glasses aren't sunglasses though, because the face had a strong influence. You could paint the glasses lenses in Photoshop with a darker color and then use inpainting again. Even though it's not an inpainting model, you can see that in some cases it can deliver great results. If I increase the denoise value again, it starts to fail, so it has a very fine range compared with SDXL, where you can go from 0.5 to 1. All right, here it's more like 0.8 to 0.9 or so. You can try different samplers and schedulers, and that will change the range. Let me clear the selection, and this time I will select only the head of the woman. In the crop node, I'll invert the selection, and for the prompt, I'll describe how the woman should look and in what environment. You can also play around with the blur to avoid that sudden transition. The result is the same woman's head, but with a different body. You can try different seeds, or if you want it to be more similar to the original, you can reduce the denoise value. The result isn't too similar, so we can increase it again. I should go with 1 step instead of 5 for more fine tuning, but you get the idea. With a little bit of luck, some denoise balancing, and good prompting, the only limit is your imagination. I also saved an outpainting workflow for Flux. I'll reset the top value and expand to the left and right. This one is a bit trickier to get right since there are 2 columns at the edge, but let's try it. You can see how the node expanded the image, but we need to play more with the settings since it doesn't look too good. I can try a lower value or a bigger blur, but for this seed, it didn't look great, so we can try more seeds. Alternatively, you can copy the image and paste it into an inpainting workflow. Since the columns are the problem, we can mask only those columns. The result is really bad because the invert mask selection was on, so I'll disable that and try again. Again, the problem seems to be that the columns are coming out too big and the mask is too small. As you can see, with different seeds, the same issue arises. So I'll increase the mask a little where it had problems and reduce the denoise a bit. Yes, now it looks much better. Let me try another seed to make sure it wasn't just a lucky seed and that the settings are right. It seems to be working just fine. If you have an Adobe Photoshop subscription, you can also do outpainting in Photoshop using the crop tool and changing the fill to generative expand. You can drag the crop in the direction you want or in both directions if you hold the Alt key. You can even constrain it to a certain ratio. This is the result you get, but it provides 3 results, so you can check what works best for you or regenerate if you don't like any of the options. You can also do inpainting by selecting the area you want to change, like the upper part of this temple. Then you can use the generative fill option and describe what you want. Hit generate, and again, you can choose from 3 options. If you need more options, you can generate again. I like to combine Photoshop with ComfyUI to get the best results. That's all for today. Thank you all for your incredible support. The legends are truly amazing. If you're a legend, be sure to connect your Discord with YouTube to access the private Legends channel. A special thanks to VIP and Maestro for all your help. I really appreciate all the likes, comments, and super thanks. They mean a lot to me. Have a fantastic day, and I look forward to seeing you on Discord.